So I'm understanding guys are building garages to get away from their wives. Why not just eliminate the middleman or woman, whatever your preference may be, and move right into a garage? Now, this isn't a garage by any mean. It's actually a pole barn. And I'm in the process of insulating it. I added plumbing. Well, there was plumbing actually to the facility, but there was only a faucet here and a faucet outside, and the one outside leaked in here, and it was always damp in here. So I put a sink in, a urinal, and a dishwasher, and I insulated this, and that's barely a small part. Now, through watching YouTube on how to insulate doors, there was a gentleman who did a tutorial on this reflectix stuff, and he shows everything. He did it in a house garage, but this stuff is great because it is 24 inches wide. It's not the only size it comes in, by 24 feet long, I think it is. Whatever it comes in, the roll I bought was like $40 at Home Depot, and it does 2 lengths of one, or you can double it up in the same. Now, I had it doubled up in here in this one bay, but now instead of doubling it up, I have done one row, and where the hell is it at? And it's not tied down on this one because I stick stuff behind here. Now, I find this plastic stuff that they make, your signs out of for elections mainly. It's just a plastic with it's essentially same stuff form boxes are made out of. Well, I had to take a piece of it and put it up there because I broke that window out, and then I put a piece of that stuff the election signs are made out of. For lack of a better term, I consider it a plastic version of cardboard because that's exactly what it looks like. Now, they use it for signs everywhere. Walmart uses it a lot for sales and all that stuff, and they just throw it out when they're done. Walmart also uses it underneath of their racks in black form in their nursery. Now, I put that behind it to just create an air gap, because that's essentially all any of this insulation is doing, is not allowing air to touch one another. So as long as you could stop the air from being able to move, you can insulate. Now, I'll go over that again with another set, but I got 4 12-foot by 10-foot doors in here to do. And it gets expensive, $40 a roll, and then each one of these pink styrofoams is $20 a sheet. Now, I got all these ones cheap because somebody tore down was it some kind of refrigeration unit or something, and they were just used, so I got them like $10 a piece, which makes it a whole lot better. But yeah, I really do live in here. Filing cabinets are one of my specialties. I put everything in filing cabinets because they're free on Marketplace or even Craigslist. Now, I get these free all the time too because they don't work. I cut them up and I use the forks for building pitchforks on tractors. And I also weld a hoop on them, and I have a car trailer out back that I put diamond decking on and a winch, and it just drags. And you can put whatever on them and drag it up. Now, I can go buy one of these probably for like $200 from, I don't know, Harbor Freight or whatever, or used off the Marketplace or whatever. But I mean, these ones were free and I used them on my deck, but now I start using them for all kinds of shit. Now, I'm not brand loyal by any stretch of the imagination, but I work with metal a lot. I'm a metal fabricator, and I'm a mechanic. What I consider myself is a mechanical re-engineer. I do a lot of child-proofing is what my work is. So being that most of my work is through landscapers, they break a lot of stuff on purpose and just through use. So I have to figure out ways to keep it from breaking, and so they can use less people to work. Now I use this brand because they're the only ones I've noticed that survived my abuse. Now, I wouldn't go commercial with their blower, but it works for what I need it for. I blow cars out with it. I blow cars dry with it. I clean the garage out of it. I blow my bed off with it. But it works for me, but not for a landscaper. They need a lot more air. Now, if you see anything that you have any questions on, like why the fuck it's so goddamn messy in here, it's because I have ADHD, and I'll go from one project to the next in seconds. Sometimes I'll find a part that I need for another project. Now, I don't just go out and buy whatever. I usually just save everything and steal parts off of it. So, that being said, some things I have to have. One is this fab table, which is 60, 70 years old, and it's been broken and put back together. I put a wheel kit on it because I put wheels on everything because everything has to move for me, because sometimes the job moves and sometimes I got to put clean or whatever, so I put wheels under everything. But this table is the shit. Now, you can buy a newer one. They have the round holes, which would be a lot more convenient than this one is, but I had to make tooling for this one. I found out that this brand fits in here perfectly as far as C-clamps. Now, this is a Harbor Freight one, and in order to do that one, I have to skin two sides of it with the what are they, the ends of a fence. When they put the clamps on them, there's a bar that goes down through them. It's galvanized. Now I found that on either side of that, the clamp will keep it stable and it will lock by wedging itself. Now, if that's me taking apart my Lincoln SUV to fix stuff, and I just don't put the plastics back because, man, I got too much shit going on. Now, here is my primary heat source, and it is a wood stove that has a Tractor Supply kit on it for raising it up off the ground. It doesn't raise it up off the ground very much, and it's hard to load, so I built a table underneath of it, slightly larger, just so I could put that little rack in front of it. Now, I've cooked on this thing. Now I have pots and all that shit, or like you can clean this off and put hot dogs on it if you need to. But I'm in the process of making it a boiler, and this is going to be a temporary boiler because I'm in the process of making an outdoor boiler as well. Everything's always in the process. Now, what I did was I used dryer duct, and I don't recommend this unless you have a pole barn for using as a chimney. Now, dryer duct, you can't use it because of that seam. So that seam can leak gases out. Now, mind you, this is the outside duct. There's a center one in there, and I put fire caulk on it. Now, that's what you see here. This is all fire caulk. Fire caulk does not stick to this shit at all. Now, mind you, it's double insulated, and in the center, I have this copper tubing, and that is to pull heat out of the chimney because my chimney is apparently too big, or I don't know. It drafts too much. It goes straight up, and a lot of heat goes right outside. Now, up there, I used the flexible aluminum instead of the straight, and it works better than this because it doesn't have the seams in it, but I thought I couldn't bring the aluminum this far down because the heat would melt that thin aluminum. And it probably will. I don't know if it will or not. So that's why I put that copper tubing in there to pull some of that heat out so that the heat doesn't destroy the aluminum. You can see what it's doing to the duct tape. And this shit does not survive. It'll probably get changed, but that stuff was like, I don't know, $7 a section. So I got a whole bunch of it for $100, whereas it's like over $100 for one section of actual chimney stack. So I was being tight. I mean, you could see it's just a 55-gallon drum with a kit in it from Tractor Supply, and it works really well, but it's just really hot right here and nowhere else. I put a fan. That's what that fan's for. That fan usually sits on there to blow some of the heat over, but I'm going to wrap it with the copper and try and get as much heat as I can and then send it over the roof down to the other side. All right, so here's a little hack. These lights bulbs, the LED replacement for the halogen lamps, are $12 at Home Depot. They are the shit. They are stupid bright. And at $12 a piece, I get these halogen lamps every time somebody breaks a bulb. Like this one, it happens to take a lot of bulbs, but they broke the bulb. So they just give them away or trash them. I take the glass actually out of them because you don't need the glass because these do get hot, but they're not going to burn you or nothing like that. And I've knocked these things over with them, and the only thing that happens is these bulbs will fall out, and you just put it back in. Sometimes you'll occasionally catch this on its way out and break that off, but it still works. So I actually made so many of these with the LED lamps on them. That is a hell of a way to reuse those lights. Now, let's see what else. This is actually an old Japanese commercial vacuum that they wanted $120 for a new filter. Now, I use this for a smoke eater and a vacuum. If I want to use it to eat the smoke from when I'm welding in here, that's what that magnet's on there for. I just suck up a half a bucket of water, and if there's any sparks that get in there, it extinguishes them. Now, the filter being $100 and some, it was crazy. So all I did was stick the air filter off of a large diesel truck on there and wrap it in a silt sock. That's the sock that you see on construction sites that they fill with mulch to keep debris from getting into the water system. It absorbs it, but it works great for that. Now, tractors, always getting flat tires. All this equipment does. I use this brand of tire sealant, it's referred to as, but I'm not opposed to using somebody else's, but I know there's a better one out there that's specifically for the agricultural industry. Now, to find a leak, now that will seal anything in the tread, and you can lubricate the bead as you're putting the tire on with that, and it will help it go on, and it'll seal a lot better. Now, if you have a valve stem issue, it will not seal a valve stem issue. Now, if somebody's been driving around on an older tire with it flat for a while, and you get on the inside of here, this whole ribbing from flexing will break off. If you have that issue, it will not seal that either. So you got to catch them. I put slime in all these tires, I don't know, maybe a year ago. Now this one's back and it's flat, so I'm going to have to try and figure out what the hell's wrong with it. So to find it, the leak, I just spray, well, I call it Smurf Jizz, but it's just Dawn, this brand, I should say, and water. Sometimes I'll put methanol in it, windshield washer fluid, and all that does is help it evaporate quicker, so like it'll also eat grease better. Because I use that same spray to wash hands, knock grease off of stuff, like, and it won't harm your hands. It doesn't hurt. Now, Japanese tractor, this thing's amazing. I mean, it's just a little guy, but it always runs. It never has any problems. Japanese trucks. This came from another client because it was smoking, and I'm going to throw injectors in it. I bought it. It's going to be my new something. I don't know what the hell I'm going to make out of it yet. But here is a dump truck that I mechanically re-engineered. Now, this was a 24-foot, I believe, or 20-foot box van. Now, the client came and said if he got a screaming deal on this truck. So it was dirt cheap, and it needed a dump bed on it. Now, he had this dump bed on a Toyota, whatever their heavy-duty truck is, and from leaving leaves in it, it rotted the bottom out, so I skinned the bottom in just regular plate steel. The hoist was all cracked. I just welded them up. And I also built this assembly to keep from the doors being gapped at the bottom and the middle. And sure enough, they did it again. Now, this comes from when they dump mulch in and the loader operator does not know what they're doing, and they hit the side of the truck and they bend the sides out. Now, this is 3 heavy pieces of steel with a brace, and they still managed to break it. Now, I built the hinges myself too. It's actually a 5/8 round and 1/2-inch gas pipe. Black pipe or galvanized, doesn't matter. But they fit perfectly to make hinges. Now, I got that from some YouTuber. Now, this is my own bumper. Now, I built it straight across, rounded the corners, and I was really just filling it in because I was just hiding the hinges and all the mechanisms in there. Like, I built my own hinges. Now, that's I don't know, it's 3-inch round and a piece of pipe that I found that fit. Now, they're overkill hinges, but they're never going to go a problem. I know there's grease fittings in them. Now, for the tail lights, all I did was I cut a square out with a plasma cutter, and then I put the tail light boxes, I don't know what the hell they're off of or where you get them from, but they were laying around, and I welded on hinges to it. I wouldn't recommend using these ones because they're actually really hard to open. Now, I made it so that they fold down and they're held in place by a bungee cord. So if they do back into something and it does make it past the expanded metal, it will just push down on this and it'll push it back, and then it can spring back. But these hinges seem to get rusty and they bind up too easily, so you're better off just using the 5/8 and the gas pipe in short lengths. Now, I put nuts on here to give it a little bit of a distance, so if it does get dented up here, that it will not penetrate to the lamp. Now, this is the first thing that it can contact. Now, they've worked perfectly except for the hinges. Now, the bumper was made so that it can be just knocked silly. I mean, it can be hit and then go back to right where it was. If I hook a chain to it, I could drag it out. Now, they didn't want it solid on there because if the guys hit something else, they didn't want to do too much damage to it. Now, this thing has performed the bed flawlessly since I put it on there, except for the fact that I had to cut out every time there's a different trailer hung onto it. I'll find out that it's not cut out high enough, and sooner or later when I figure out the highest trailer, I will clean my cut up. Now, I don't know what else there is around here that I can maybe help somebody hack into fixing, but I don't know. If I come across something or if you have any questions, just let me know.